Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I am currently in the United States, in North Carolina to be precise, and today's video is going to be about my second business, which I started in 2020. I want to tell the story of how I got into this business and what went on and how I kind of shut it down. Now, long story short, it failed, okay? Completely flopped. And it costed me about 65 to $80,000 of my own money over the period of about 6 to 7 months, which I never saw back a dime, okay? So if you're just joining, please stay to the end because it's a very fun story. And I tell the story in hindsight now and I laugh about it, but it was a lot of pain because I spent a lot of money, which was my own money, and this was hard earned money. And I almost went into bankruptcy for different reasons, but I'm going to explain more in detail. So let's go all the way to the beginning. If you recall, I did a video about not a video, I did a post I did a post about my very first business, okay? It was an IT company which I started in 2019. The idea was to cut out the middleman, okay? I realized that I was only making $75 an hour and the company was actually paying about $130 an hour for me. And I thought, well, guess what? I could cut out the middleman. So I started a company, and you can check my Instagram for that. That post is there. But long story short, a friend of mine and I went into business, and we started getting some small contracts here and there. It wasn't anything big, okay, but it was relatively bigger than what we were doing in our own jobs as employees for other people. So now we basically just started working as employees for ourselves, which meant what? We kept all of the money in between, right? Of course, that had its own challenges, but we made more money. That's the bottom line, okay? Fast forward to February 2020 when I had some cash sitting down, and I said, well, what can I do with this money? And at the time, I'd been hearing so much about business in Africa. So what I decided to do was, you know what? I'm going to go out and start a venture capital firm that would invest in startups in Africa where I come from. Okay? Here was my theory. At the time, I had about roughly 90 to $100,000 of my own money readily available. And I figured that the IT company was going to continue to make money. So this was not going to be a problem. Okay. And I figured if I found one or two companies and invested about $5,000 to $10,000 in them over a period of 4 to 5 months, I could see a reasonable track record and then now get more people to invest with me and we can take that company and grow it. And I say this because I was in touch with a lot of my friends who were still in Africa at the time, right? People who hadn't left the continent after college, like me, and they had actually, gone to further their studies to get advanced degrees and had started working. Keep in mind, at the time, I was just 26 years old, right? So I had about 4 to 5 years of professional working experience under my belt. And so my age mates, whom were the people I was dealing with, had a similar amount of professional knowledge under their belt. Okay. Now, these people were working for different companies and they said, listen, uh, I have this situation. I went out, started my own deal. These are my problems. I need capital. I need capital. If you guys can come in and work with us, we can grow this thing and make money. And I'm thinking, well, guess what? I'm from Africa. I got to give back to my continent, right? Even though I'm young, I can do it in this way. I might not be able to stay there and provide the expertise because now I'm based in the United States. At the same time, I can actually support people that are doing this in real life. That was the idea. Cool? Now, I spoke to my friends who were here, who had good jobs like me and very little responsibility. Like we're all making and $50,000 or 100, even up to $170,000 at the ages of 26 and 27, because we were in professions that paid a lot if you know what you're doing. Okay, I had people that were in investment banking that were already making almost $200,000 a year at the age of 26 and 27. Now, I don't know what age in which you're watching this or where you come from as a background, but 200K a year is a lot of money for a 26-year-old that has no responsibility. So we had money to put aside, okay? A bunch of them said, hey, guess what? This is a decent idea, but we work hard for our money. We're not going to throw it away, okay? If you want to do this stuff, you start the company, you put in the seed funding. When you have something that's proven, come back and talk to us. We are going to put in our own money and keep the fire going. I said, you know what? That's a great idea. So I went ahead and I registered my second company called Sapphire Prime Ventures. That was the idea. It was a venture capital company, right? And I wanted to make it look legit, look official. You know, I haven't made a kind of a logo that was similar to some of the big other companies that are in private equity like BlackRock. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I was trying to make it look nice, okay? And I'll put out the logo on my Instagram so you can check it out. But I did all that stuff and the company was legit ready to go. So at the time, I'd been talking to a couple of people and I actually ended up feeling really good about two companies in two different sectors in two different countries. And those countries were close to my heart because one of them was from Cameroon. As a matter of fact, the person that had the company was a college buddy of mine, and I already trusted him, right? So I knew that whatever he was saying was true. Like, we had a foundational relationship. I didn't have to vet the company too much, okay? Now, I didn't have a lot of business experience, which was a problem in and of itself, which meant that all that I was bringing to the table was money, and also I didn't really have enough expertise to vet some of the things he was telling me or to see some of his own shortcomings at the same time. But anyway, I went with that company. It was a biotech company in Cameroon. It's called Blood Track. And the idea of it was very simple, right? How did he come up with it? He's a medical doctor trained, and one time he has a kid that dies on his operation table where there were other physicians for one simple reason. There was no blood. Like, if you live in a developed country, to you, that's crazy, right? Why? There is always blood. There's a blood bank in every hospital. Well, if you come from Africa, like I do, you know that that only exists in a few private hospitals. The idea was to build a platform that did two things to solve that problem. Number one, to basically create a database of donors, okay? And people that were basically vetted and tested, and we knew their blood types. We believe that if we did that, then if ever somebody needed blood, we can easily make a call and get them to come and donate. That's just one part, okay? That database is one part. The other part was to continuously carry out programs to encourage blood donations and then to partner with blood banks to build up an actual database of blood present, so much so that if you had a situation where you needed blood, you can easily go on that platform, be it on a phone or tablet or a computer, and say, I need blood type A, blood type B, or blood type 0. And I'm just spitting out letters here, okay? I'm not a medical professional. Please bear with me, okay? And then you could connect with us and we could say, okay, this blood bank has that blood type. We know because we partner with them and we ensure that it's there. Or if none of the blood banks in the area have that, we can easily call someone whom we know that is around and not buy the blood, but basically incentivize them to donate. And the idea was to provide them with free healthcare, because healthcare is also a big deal in developing countries like where I come from. Okay, that was the idea. Now that's kind of a 50,000 foot view. Okay, if you came down to a 10,000 foot view, it's way more granular and detailed, and it would make sense. So the idea kind of hit me, and I said, you know what? Great, let's do it. That's the first one. Second idea, like I said, completely different sector, completely different country, and completely different kind of relationship. This is also someone that I had gone to school with, but from a sister school, and we were involved in different professional activities together, and we got to know each other, right, as good friends. And as she moved over to Nigeria to further her studies, she went into professional education, and she realized that there was a budding middle class in Nigeria, which is not something we had a lot in Cameroon at the time. And I'm talking about 3 years ago, okay? Things might be different now. And we might have some kind of a middle class. So, Cameroonians, please do not come for me. I love my country, okay? But Nigerians just had a better middle class because there was more jobs, more companies, and a middle class means that people have what is called discretionary income to spare, right? And if they do that, therefore, they're more willing to spend on things after the basic living necessities like food, healthcare, water, and shelter, right? They can want to buy a nicer car. They can want to do nicer things for the kids. One of them, which might involve, you guessed right, after school activities. That's something that's very common in developed countries. In developing countries, it's kind of reserved for those who are doing very well. But we realized that Nigeria really had that potential as the middle class was building. Okay, that's like the baseline of the company. So we said, okay, if we come in and we build an after-school academy that provided top-notch instructors to teach things that are not taught in school, like coding, like music, like art and a craft, right? There's a couple of others which I don't recall, but we had like 5 of them. People that can afford to do these things and want a better education for their children are going to be willing to actually come in and spend the money with us and, try the program and say, you know what, I want to spend this extra money for my son or for my daughter. And our prices was going to be decent, right? Of course, there was a trial period and everything, okay? So we said, let's do it. And I basically, for the biotech company in Cameroon, I came in at a later stage where there was already some stuff going on. So even though it was still what we call in venture capital seed funding, because they weren't in any level of kind of a Series A or a Series B or anything like that. This was just seed. This was kind of initial funding, right? The concept was there, but it was still seed. And even though there were other people, but it wasn't mature. So I put in some money, but not so much. For the academy company in Nigeria, I basically put up all the money, right? My partner, who was actually running the deal, she put up about, I can say 10% of the money. I put up the other 90% of the money, right? I seeded the whole thing, basically. And what that meant was hard code cash. That was buying computers and exporting them to Nigeria for the program, buying instruments or sending money to basically sign a lease for the space, to partner and hire teachers, to build a curriculum, to register the company as an actual company in the Nigerian system. Like, we were doing this to be legit, okay? We did all that. Now, that was all fun and games until it was not. Keep in mind, When did this company start? February 2020. Now, if you have any memory at all, which most people should, what happened in 2020? COVID. As soon as we started this company and spent all this money, in the next 3 months, the world went to a complete shutdown. And it was crazy because we never ever saw that coming, right? It hit us, it hit me in particular in the face. Now, we have all these leases we've already signed. We have all these teachers we've hired. We have all this equipment we've bought. We have all these registrations and licenses we've gotten for this company. But everyone is in lockdown. Nobody is going out. Nobody wants to send their kid outside. It literally got to a point where we were offering stuff for free just to get people in the door. That's how bad it was. No one still showed up. Okay, at the start, a few people here and there, right? When we're not really certain how bad COVID could be. And that was in like March, April. The lockdowns really started going down in May. But by June, it was low-key over. And I mean done. Okay? We were barely getting any traction. People did not want to risk it. And my idea was, okay, if we can push this thing for another 4 to 5 months, hopefully, like you recall how health scientists and people kept saying that, the pandemic is not going to last, yada, yada, yada. It's a spike, it's going to go down like other pandemics. And I just kept hoping that maybe next month it will go down. Maybe next month it will go down, right? And I kept putting in money. I kept, keeping the whole thing alive, paying for the contracts, kind of paying for teachers, not like full salaries, but, compensating them, because these are people that we literally got them to leave their second jobs they had after teaching their full-time jobs. We got them to leave those jobs and get them actual contracts saying that we were going to hire them to work for this new company. And we knew that it was going to work because as soon as we started, parents were flooding in through the door. They kept saying, this is something we actually want. So I just kept throwing more wood into the fire. But then COVID fucked it up. Excuse my French, okay? That's just what it is. I learned a lot of lessons from both of these ventures, right? Because by the time it was around September, I realized that I really had to cut my losses because I was getting to a point where my IT company, which was my primary source of both business and personal income, was shrinking up, right? Because COVID affected it as well. We lost like 2 contracts, we were down to 1. At this point, we're basically employees making less than what we were making when we were at our full-time jobs. That's how bad it got. And I saw my personal income drop, and I saw my amount of savings just completely shrink out through the door, right? And it got to a point where I had to look at my account someday and say, listen, if I continue at this pace in the next 3 weeks or about a month, 2 months tops, I'm going to be bankrupt. Like business and personal wise. When people talk about bankruptcies, it's kind of something that's reserved in movies or bigger companies going bankrupt and stuff. Guys, you can go bankrupt personally. All that means is that you cannot pay your bills, okay? And going bankrupt is not necessarily the problem. I mean, when public companies go bankrupt, we know sooner than later because it's in the news. But when private companies go bankrupt, things do not get bad on that day. They get bad 2 months down the line when vendors are not paid, when employees are not paid, when contracts are not fulfilled. For individuals, it takes a longer time, okay? It takes about a month to 2 months or 3 months for you to really feel the effect. And it's kind of the same reason why when someone loses a job, they're kind of panicking, but not really panicking because they're expecting their last check. they're expecting their savings account to cover them for a month or two, right? It's really when they get to that third month and they cannot pay their bills, that's when it hits them, right? But, and I've only learned this in hindsight, or I had learned it a while ago, that you don't live off of the money in your account. You live off of a spreadsheet, because a spreadsheet shows you the money that's about to be going out of your account in the next week, or in the next 2 weeks, or in the next month. So yes, you might have 10 grand or $20,000 in your account now, but if you have no more money coming in, or the money that you have coming in is constantly shrinking, however, you have projected expenses that are more than what you have in your account, in combined with what's coming, you're already bankrupt on paper. You're not just bankrupt in real life yet. But if you don't make adjustments in that moment, you're going to be bankrupt in real life. And that's really bad, because everybody knows. And you screw up your credit and you leave bad relationships. And it's just not fair, okay? It's bad business, okay? Don't do it. So it's always important for me. I've always looked at my finances on paper first before the cash in my account. And when I can see that that's really becoming a problem, I make the hard call. But that experience, and I'm only saying this in hindsight, because that experience was actually what taught me to do that. Because I was getting to a point where I should have made that call 2 months ago. I would have been in a better place. But I made that point when, and excuse my French, shit was literally about to hit the fan. Had I not done that, and the basis of which I kept spending money for this company wasn't very strong, right? I was supposed to work with either hard facts or real money. I didn't have hard facts to back up my thesis, and I didn't have real money to continue going if my thesis failed. Like, do you see how that's a ticking time bomb waiting to happen? Yeah, so that's basically it. Anyway, 6 months down the line, I pulled the plug on the company and I told my partner, listen, here's where we are, okay? I cannot continue to fund this company. So all what we have already done, I'm just gonna leave everything in your hands, okay? I just wanna cut my losses and move on, okay? Whatever I wanna do with all that stuff is up to you, okay? You go figure it out. But this is where I end, all right? You deal with the teachers. If you're gonna sell the equipment and pay them off, that's up to you, but you figure it out, all right? I'm out. Same thing for the biotech company. I just stopped putting money in at some point because we were not getting any traction as well, right? And I really underestimated how complex it was to set up and get a biotech company running in all countries, Cameroon to be particular, at that time. So that's how my second company, which was a venture capital company, started and costed me all this money and just went to a fail. But I learned 3 vital lessons, okay? There's so many smaller ones. I want to focus on 3, okay? I want to like really dig into 3. Number 1, business is more about building up you as a person before building up the business. I know that that's counterintuitive, but it's true. Business, especially if you're starting out, the job you have to do is to build up yourself into someone who can actually run the business. The easiest way to do that is to actually be running the business. Like, you have to be present, you have to be there. It's not an online thing. It's not a passive thing. You have to be there. Because 9 times out of 10, when you start a business, you have a lot of hopes and dreams, but you have no concrete plan. You have no concrete experience. And even if you do, when you go on the field, things are going to change. So if you are not present and actually doing the day-to-day operation of that business, it's not a good place to be in, because you are not learning. You as a person is not getting better. And if you as a person is not really getting better, the business cannot get better. I had no business going into venture capital. That was a bad idea. Worst of all, venture capital over the oceans in 2 different countries. That was just dumb, stupid, as Dave Ramsey would say. Dumb choices. Shouldn't have done that. But I had to do that to find out. So if you are someone that is starting a business and you're not present, think very carefully. You might be making a mistake. Because I was. And now in my current business, where I'm actually present, the things I've learned over the past 2 years are crazy. You cannot teach them. You have to be doing them to understand. There are no 2 ways about it. So first lesson is, if you're just starting out and you're doing anything, you should be present. You ought to be present. I beg you to be present. If not, you might be making a big mistake. Do not delegate it. Let it not be overseas. Be there. That's the first lesson. Lesson number 2. If you're just starting out, it's important to do something that is established, so you can learn to be an entrepreneur. It's one thing to be present. It's another one to do something that is already established. 95% of startups fail because they're trying to do new things. If your goal is just starting out, do something that is not new. Copy something. Go into a franchise. Start your own version of something that is established. Do not reinvent the wheel yet. Because, as I said in point number 1, your first business is about making you a better business person. And if you're trying to do something that's new, you're trying to become a good business person, at the same time trying to figure out a business that nobody has done. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the odds are stacked against you. You might succeed, but chances are you actually might fail. And both companies that I was doing, they were investing in, they were fairly new. The biotech idea, brand new in Cameroon. They had like 2 other people thinking, not doing, thinking about having blood transfusion networks and database. They were thinking, they were not even doing, they were thinking about doing it. They had initiatives, and these were established companies. Like, can you see how that didn't go well? Okay. In Nigeria, it was a relatively new concept. Okay? And there were not a lot of after-school programs doing that. We were better off doing a restaurant. A restaurant concept is simple. You cook food, people come in and get it, that's it. Right? But we're trying to do something niche, something upscale, something that, it's attracted to a unique set of middle-class people. We were better off doing something basic to learn the ropes. So number two, if you're just starting out, I beg you, do something that has already been done just to sharpen your tip. Very important. Okay? That way you learn business, you become a better business person, and then you can now go ahead and do something that is brand new, something that is inspiring that people look up to. You have some experience. Very important. Last but not the least, major lesson. And there's like so many little ones, okay? This is about managing money. Businesses that do not produce income are tricky. Very tricky. So if you are the investor, you need to really understand what your own personal expenses are. Regardless of how much money you have, if you do not have cash flow coming in and you're not doing a good job managing your own expenses, like very strict, versus how much you're putting into a company that is not producing so much money, you might be playing a very risky game that might catch up with you. Please, if you're starting out, I beg you, be a master of your money. Do not live off of the money that's in your bank account. Spreadsheets, simple Excel spreadsheets. Income statement, how much money is coming in and how much money you're spending. Balance sheet, how much assets you have, how much liabilities you have. Statement of cash flow, how often your money is coming and going. And if you want to add a fourth one, asset statement, how much assets I have and how am I depreciating them. Very important. You cannot run a successful business if you're not financially savvy. You might make a lot of money, but it's going to go right through your face. And guys, I don't say this to be preachy, okay? I made these mistakes. They happened to me. I paid very dearly for them. I do not want anybody else to make the same mistakes. That's why I'm doing this stuff. So please, 3 lessons, and I'm going to wrap up here. Number 1, be present physically in the business, doing the business. That's if you're starting out. Number 2, do something that has already been done. The Facebooks and the Instagrams and the Amazons and the LinkedIns and the other companies that were all startups are 1 in 100,000. That's all we see. You want to know how many businesses have failed? Go to your Secretary of State website or to the Small Business Administration website and find out the failure rate of new concepts. It's 99%. This is not my data. Go check it out yourself. Do something that has already been done, that is almost something that's boring, so that you can become a better entrepreneur. So number 1 is being present in whatever you're doing. Number 2 is doing something that is already established so you can learn. And number 3 is being a master of the money. Else it's going to end badly. I know, because it happened to me. Like, I only narrowly escaped, okay? That's how it went down for me. So I'm going to end here to make this too long, so that I did not make this too long. Sorry. There's so many other smaller lessons, but these are the main ones. Guys, I hope that this was helpful to you. My goal is to bring value and share my experiences so that other people who are starting out do not make the same mistakes I did. I wish that I had people talking to me in such detailed language when I started. It could have helped me So I'm doing it for you guys to help you as well. Okay? If you're new to this space, I'm Carlson Chimanga. I'm building a community of young, enterprising business people that want to become their own bosses by acquisition. I am doing that because it's what set me free. It's what basically helped me get into business. And I haven't gotten there yet. I'm going to make a video about my third and current business, but I wanted to do this one about my second one to kind of walk you guys through the ropes. So number one was the IT company that made some money. I took that money, put it in number two, which is what we've discussed today, and that failed. And then now I went in and started number three, which is what is working for me right now. Okay. I look forward to doing more with you guys and, basically getting ahead together. That's my mantra, right? If we are all winning, the world is a better place. We can take care of our families and feed our children and take care of our parents and give back to our communities and our church and make the world a better place. That's my idea. All right? So if you vibe with that, if you bond with that, join me, subscribe to this space. Let's do more together. Thank you for being here, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.